This video is part 2, and I might make a few other parts to the video on how to convert a truss roof system, engineered roof system, to a conventional framing system in order to put a vaulted ceiling in. Now in this video I want to talk about installing the beam first. So what if you can actually get the beam in without cutting the trusses? Because remember, you can't cut the trusses until they're supported. And you could always support the trusses. Don't get me wrong. You can always run a long 2x4 up to maybe the bottom of this and the bottom of this if you're going to use these supports, or run a 2x4 to the top, or make a few supports underneath the truss. But anytime you cut the truss, make sure that it's supported. And I don't just mean one truss. All of the trusses would need to be supported. And you could get away with quite possibly supporting every other truss, but that would be, I'm going to leave that up to you. So if you can get the beam in and the truss is not damaged, you don't cut the truss, or there are no supporting members in the middle, you could actually end up with a truss looking something like this. And there is no truss support in the center, making it easier for you to install the beam. So again, this would all depend upon what type of roof system you have and how much you would need to add to it to support it. So in the previous video, I think I had a support underneath the existing or the new rafters. In this, if you were going to use this system, you would need to somehow brace and support this, and it might not be feasible. So these are just, I'm throwing this out there as another method, but it might not, it might be difficult. It might provide you with more work, and of course it might not work at all. Here's the next problem you're going to have, and that would be to actually get the rafter into the bay, and this is where it's going to be difficult, and this is why I suggested doing the other method, the one in part 1, I should say. And you can see right here that we have the rafter. If we were going to raise it straight up, it's going to be in the way. We are not going to be able to just simply raise it straight up. This would be going straight up. You know, yeah, you're right, we could run it into the wall, but that's not going to help us out. So here's the rafter up against the wall here, framing plate, and it's not going to go in this way. However, we might be able to remove the exterior block and slide the rafter into the bay. And this is all going to depend upon the size of the rafter and the height or the distance in the bay here. This might not work. For example, if you have a 2x4 truss and a 2x12 rafter, which I believe this is what this scales to. I'm pretty sure it's a 2x12. Something like this might work. Now with this right here, I'd like to point out, you can always move the rafter over a little bit and move the rafter this way a little bit. Get it at an angle. This might give you a little more room. And then once you get it into the bay and slide it past, you'll actually need to work it. You'll kind of wiggle your way up and see if you can turn it off of its side into its proper position. This could be difficult, but not impossible. Sometimes you might need to use a little force to get it in, but I'm providing you with this angle here so that you can see we would have plywood on top of here. Now, if you don't have any roof sheeting, obviously this wouldn't be a problem at all. But if you are doing this to an existing roof and you have roof sheathing, you're not going to be able to push this rafter in any farther. You're going to reach a point where it's just not going to go any further. And you can see here that we're off just a little bit, and this is where if you moved it at an angle, move the bottom to the right and move the top to the left, something like this, this could work. And again, this is a could. I have seen a variety of different problems with this, ran into it myself. Like I said, the first method is definitely a method I would prefer, but if you have the right type of truss, like I was saying, this system might actually work. The only problem with this one right here And this is the biggie. Only problem with this is that you need to remove the blocks. And if these blocks are going to be difficult to remove, or if there's a problem, they're going to create a problem for the exterior finish, then you might not be able to use this system. You might be able to if you need a little more room. You're having a difficult time get the rafter in. You might be able to cut some of the rafter at the end like this. You might be able to remove some of it at the bottom and then put a filler piece underneath it. For example, if you could remove 3/4 of an inch off the bottom and then put a 3/4 inch filler piece on top of the plate so the rafter can sit on top of it. The engineer might even allow you to cut the rafter from, let's just say, an inch down, come in like 2 feet, and then you would have a filler piece. And then once the rafter was installed, you could install the filler piece in. That might be okay. But again, that would be something that you would need to check with the inspector on, the engineer on. You could always put a spacer piece at the top. This might be allowable. And again, this is all just if you need a little bit more room. Sometimes all you need is 1/4 of an inch. If that's the case, use a 1/4 inch spacer if it's acceptable, and you're good. One more thing I'd like to point out: if you are going to do this particular method, wouldn't be a bad idea before you install the beam. Wouldn't be a bad idea to create some type of a false beam and place it in position just for one stud bay. One rafter bay. If you have your rafters are spaced 24 inches on center, maybe create a 30-inch space. You could always do it with a piece of plywood, or if it's a 2x12, 4x12, 6x12 beam, you could always cut a section of the beam off if you have an extra section of the beam. Don't cut it just to do this. You could always make something up, and I hope this makes sense. You could use 2x4s and build something that's going to create a false beam, and then see if you can actually get the rafters into this area. And you might be able to do it just by measuring some stuff. You could make some marks on the rafters and might give you an idea if you're going to be able to get the rafters in after you install the beam. Again, this is not something, this is something I've tried it like this, and it's been difficult. And I've actually had to force the rafters in, which pushed the plywood or the roof sheathing up. And I don't know if this is always a good thing, And I've shimmed the bottoms. I've shimmed the sides of the rafters here, and it's not always going to be the best method. So if this doesn't work, refer back to method 1. And of course, I'm going to try and make a few more parts to the video here and see if I can provide you with a little more information. I have done this before, and it is not an easy task, either route that you take. Sometimes each of these methods presents its own set of problems, just like any other construction project, especially when it comes to remodeling. And I'm going to try and provide you with a few more of those problems that I've ended up with while doing this, just so that you can be ahead of the game and somehow maybe head those problems off at the pass by adapting and modifying some of the methods here in these video examples.